the night his mind wouldn't shut up. At exactly 3:11 a.m., Jake Reynolds was awake again, staring at the cracked ceiling of his Brooklyn apartment, heart pounding like he'd just outrun a train. The city outside was quiet, but inside his head, it was chaos. Thoughts stacked on thoughts, fears feeding fears. What if the pitch tomorrow tanks? What if the company downsizes? What if everyone realizes I'm not as good as they think? Jake rolled onto his side, checked his phone, immediately regretted it, then checked it again anyway. He had everything people online called winning. 34 years old, creative director at an ad agency, solid money, cool apartment, clean Instagram. But his mind felt like a prison with no lights and no exit signs. Anxiety wasn't something that visited him anymore. It lived there rent-free. Every night, the same loop. Every morning, the same exhaustion. And the worst part, he couldn't remember the last time he felt truly calm. Chapter 2. Control was the only thing keeping him sane. Jake believed control was survival. If he planned enough, optimized enough, stayed sharp enough, nothing could touch him. So he doubled down. Productivity apps, color-coded calendars, morning routines that felt like military drills. No sugar, no booze. Gym before sunrise. Podcasts about discipline playing at 1.25x speed like his life depended on it. Relaxing felt irresponsible. Slowing down felt dangerous. Because somewhere deep in his chest was a belief he never questioned. If I let go, everything collapses. So when anxiety showed up, he fought it harder. He tightened his grip. And the tighter he held on, the more his mind pushed back. Like trying to hold water in a clenched fist. The harder you squeeze, the faster it slips through. Chapter 3. The day everything cracked. The breakdown didn't come in a dramatic explosion. It came in a conference room. Glass walls, a dozen executives. A screen behind him glowing with slides he'd rehearsed 100 times. Jake started talking, confident at first. Then suddenly the words vanished. His throat tightened, his chest locked up. His vision narrowed. He could hear his heartbeat louder than his own voice. Someone asked a question. He couldn't process it. His brain just froze, completely. Sweat broke out across his back. His hands started shaking. Jake laughed awkwardly, muttered something about needing air, and walked out before anyone could stop him. He ended up in the bathroom, leaning against the sink, staring at his reflection like he didn't recognize the guy looking back. That was the moment he realized the truth he'd been avoiding for years. His mind wasn't protecting him anymore. It was destroying him. Chapter 4. The Man Who Didn't Rush. A week later, Jake sat across from an older man named Daniel Morey in a quiet office that smelled faintly of wood and incense. Daniel didn't rush, didn't interrupt, didn't analyze Jake like a broken machine. He just listened. When Jake finally dumped everything out, Daniel asked one simple question that hit harder than any diagnosis. How much of your life is spent fighting things you don't control? Jake opened his mouth to answer, then stopped, because the honest answer was almost all of it. Daniel leaned back and said calmly, "You're exhausted because you're at war with reality, and reality always wins." That sentence sat heavy in the room. Jake felt something shift, like the first crack in a wall he didn't even know was there. Chapter 5. The Still Mind. Daniel introduced him to the first principle. Fudoshin, the unmoved mind. Not calm, not numb. Unmoved. Anxiety will come, Daniel said. That's biology. You don't control that. What you control is whether it owns you. Jake pushed back. I don't choose panic. Daniel nodded. Correct. But you do choose how fast you obey it. Fudoshin wasn't about killing fear. It was about watching it without reacting. Letting it pass like weather instead of treating it like an emergency. When fear shows up, Daniel said, pause. 10 seconds, do nothing. Feel it in your body. Don't label it, don't fix it. Just watch. Jake thought it sounded too simple to matter. He was wrong. Chapter 6. 10 seconds. That changed everything. The first test came fast. An email from his boss popped up late afternoon. We need to talk, come by. Instantly, Jake's chest tightened. Old habits kicked in. Worst-case scenarios flooded his head. He almost jumped out of his chair. Then he remembered. 10 seconds. He sat there, breathing shallow, noticing the tension in his chest, the heat in his face, the noise in his thoughts. Nothing exploded. The fear didn't kill him. After 10 seconds, he stood up and walked to the office. Turns out the conversation wasn't a threat at all. It was support. Walking back to his desk, Jake realized something uncomfortable and liberating. Most of his suffering came from reacting to fear as if it were reality, and fear was wrong more often than it was right. Chapter 7. Shikata Ga Nai. Daniel taught him the second principle next. Shikata Ga Nai. It is what it is. Radical acceptance, not resignation. Not giving up, acceptance. Daniel drew 2 circles on a piece of paper. The small one was what Jake controlled. His actions, effort, honesty, response. The big one was everything else. Opinions are outcomes. The future. You've been bleeding energy into the big circle your whole life, Daniel said. That's why you're anxious. That's why you're tired. Preparation was useful. Worry wasn't. Worry was just suffering in advance. Jake didn't like the idea at first. It felt like surrender. But slowly he saw the truth. Letting go of what he couldn't control didn't make him weaker. It made him focused. Chapter 8. When pain gets real, then life hit for real. Jake's mother was diagnosed with an aggressive illness. No mindset hack could soften that blow. Sitting in his car outside the hospital, Jake broke down, hands shaking, chest burning, tears spilling without control. When he told Daniel he wasn't strong enough for this, Daniel didn't correct him. He introduced the third principle, Gaman, enduring suffering with dignity, not suppressing pain, not pretending to be okay, feeling everything and still showing up. Strength isn't staying dry in the storm, Daniel said. It's staying standing while you're soaked. Jake cried. He was afraid. He was exhausted, and still he kept showing up. That was Gaman. Chapter 9. The quiet shift months passed. Jake didn't magically become fearless. Anxiety still visited, but it no longer ran his life. When fear showed up, he noticed it. When outcomes were uncertain, he accepted them. When pain came, he carried it without losing himself. People noticed the change before he did. He wasn't glued to his phone anymore. He listened when people talked. His presence felt grounded. His mom noticed too. One afternoon, weak but smiling, she told him, "You're really here now. I can feel it." That moment broke him in the best way. Chapter 10. The difference that lasted. A year later, Jake stood in another high-pressure presentation. Same nerves, same stakes. His heart raced, his hands felt warm, his mind whispered doubts. He didn't fight it. He observed it. He spoke anyway. The meeting ended. Some liked it, some didn't. And for the first time in his adult life, Jake felt steady regardless. Because peace didn't come from controlling outcomes anymore. It came from mastering his response. Still mind acceptance. Dignified endurance. Not flashy, not easy, but real. Chapter 11. When old patterns come back. Jake thought the worst was over. That once you figured it out, life stayed calm. That was the lie growth always tells you at the beginning. Because just when he started feeling stable, life tested him again. The agency lost a major client. Revenue dipped. Whispers started floating through the office like bad air. Layoffs. Restructuring. Budget cuts. Jake felt it immediately in his body before his mind even caught up. Tight chest, shallow breath. That old familiar buzz in his nervous system. Anxiety didn't knock. It kicked the door open like it owned the place. For a moment, he panicked about panicking, and that scared him more than the rumors themselves. Part of him thought, here we go again. Same cycle, same hell. But another part of him, quieter but stronger now, noticed something different. He was aware of the fear, and awareness changed everything. Chapter 12. The return of the storm. The thoughts came fast. What if I'm next? What if I lose everything I've built? What if I fall behind everyone else again? Jake lay awake one night, staring at the ceiling. The same ceiling that once felt like a prison. His mind tried dragging him back into the old spiral, replaying imaginary futures like horror trailers. But this time, instead of fighting the storm, he sat up in bed and let it rage. He felt the anxiety move through his body like electricity. Chest, throat, gut. He didn't label it as good or bad. He didn't try to breathe it away. He just stayed. Minutes passed. The intensity faded, not because he controlled it, but because he didn't resist it. That was the moment Jake understood something deeply unsettling and freeing. Anxiety doesn't last forever. Resistance does. Chapter 13. Control versus Power. At his next session, Jake told Daniel about the rumors and the fear creeping back in. Daniel listened quietly, then asked, "What are you trying to control right now?" Jake answered without thinking, "The outcome." Daniel nodded. "That's the trap. Control feels like power, but it's not. Power lives in response. You don't control whether layoffs happen. You don't control whether your name ends up on a list. You control how you show up, how you prepare, and how you treat yourself if things fall apart." Jake realized that before, his entire identity was built on outcomes. Job title, salary, status. Now, slowly, painfully, he was learning to build it on character. That shift didn't remove fear, but it stopped fear from owning him. Chapter 14. The day he was let go. The email came on a Tuesday morning. "Can you come to HR at 11? Jake felt the hit immediately. His stomach dropped. His heart raced. This was it. The moment his old self had rehearsed 1,000 times. Sitting at his desk, he closed his eyes for 10 seconds. He felt the fear fully. No denial, no bargaining. Just presence. When he walked into the room, the words came fast. Restructuring. Budget constraints. Not personal. Effective immediately. A year ago, this would have destroyed him. He would have spiraled into shame, panic, and self-hate. Instead, something strange happened. It still hurt, but it didn't shatter him. He nodded, asked practical questions, thanked them, walked out with his box of stuff feeling heavy but intact. Chapter 15. The silence after impact. That night, Jake sat alone in his apartment, surrounded by silence. No emails, no Slack pings, no meetings, just him and his thoughts. Fear tried one last time to take over. What now? Who am I without this job? What if this is the beginning of the end? Jake let the thoughts talk. He didn't argue, didn't catastrophize, didn't numb himself with distractions. He sat on the floor and felt the weight of uncertainty pressed down on him. This was Gaman, enduring without collapsing, being scared without running, losing without losing yourself. Somewhere between midnight and dawn, Jake realized something that shocked him. He wasn't broken. He was grieving an identity, not his life. Chapter 16. A different kind of strength. Weeks passed. Jake updated his resume, reached out to contacts, sent applications. He worked when it was time to work, rested when it wasn't. No frantic overthinking, no self-punishment. Some days were heavy, some nights were restless, but he didn't turn against himself anymore. That was the biggest change. One afternoon, while grabbing coffee, he noticed something. His shoulders were relaxed, his breathing was slow. Even in uncertainty, his nervous system wasn't constantly screaming. The world hadn't become kinder, he had become steadier. Chapter 17. The Unexpected Call. 2 months later, a former client reached out. Not with urgency, not with pressure, just curiosity. They liked how Jake handled stress, how present he was, how he didn't spiral when projects got messy. "You seem grounded," they said. "We need someone like that." Jake smiled after the call ended, not because it was a win, but because he realized the irony. The version of him that lost his job would never have been offered this role. Only the version shaped by acceptance, stillness, and endurance could hold it. Chapter 18. Teaching without preaching. Jake didn't become a motivational guy. He didn't quote philosophy at people. But when coworkers panicked, he asked quiet questions. "What part of this is actually in your control?" When friends spiraled at 2 a.m., he listened instead of fixing. His presence alone calmed rooms. That's real leadership, not dominance, not noise, stability. People feel safe around someone who isn't fighting themselves. Chapter 19. The Real Victory. One evening, walking home through the city, Jake stopped at a crosswalk and felt something rare. Nothing. No rush. No fear, no anticipation. Just the sound of traffic and his own breath. He wasn't chasing peace anymore. He was living inside it, not because life was perfect, but because he wasn't demanding it to be. He finally understood what Daniel meant from the beginning. You don't conquer the mind. You stop turning it into a battlefield. Chapter 20. What remains? Jake still gets anxious sometimes. He still feels fear before big moments. He still suffers when life hits hard. But now there's space around those experiences. Room to breathe, room to choose. Still mind acceptance, dignified endurance. Not as ideas, but as habits. And that's the truth. Nobody sells you. Freedom doesn't come from eliminating pain. It comes from changing your relationship with it. The noise didn't disappear. Jake just stopped letting it run the show. Chapter 21. The weight of quiet success. Jake's new role didn't explode into his life with fireworks. No dramatic promotion post, no victory speech. Just steady work, clear expectations, and something unfamiliar to him. Space. Space to think. Space to breathe. Space where anxiety no longer had constant fuel. But quiet success has a strange side effect. When life finally slows down, the mind looks for problems out of habit. Some mornings, Jake would wake up with that old tightness in his chest for no obvious reason. No crisis, no threat, just the echo of years spent in survival mode. This time, instead of panicking, he recognized it. His nervous system was learning a new rhythm, and it didn't trust peace yet. He smiled at the thought. Healing wasn't a straight line. It never was. Chapter 22. The relapse. That wasn't a failure. One afternoon, a major project went sideways. Deadlines slipped, a client pushed back hard. Voices got sharp in meetings. Jake felt the familiar surge rising, that old itch to control everything, fix everything, save everything. For a moment, he almost snapped, almost reverted. Then he paused. 10 seconds. He felt the heat in his chest, the tension in his jaw, the urgency screaming at him to react. And then he did something that once felt impossible. He chose not to rush. He spoke slower. He listened more. The situation didn't magically improve, but he didn't lose himself inside it. That was the difference. Growth wasn't never slipping. Growth was noticing before you fall all the way back. Chapter 23. The conversation with the past. Late one night, Jake found an old notebook from years ago. Pages filled with frantic to-do lists, motivational quotes underlined in red, reminders to grind harder, and stay ahead or fall behind. He read it like it belonged to a stranger. That guy had been terrified. Not lazy, not weak. Terrified. Jake felt compassion for him instead of embarrassment. He finally understood something deep. You don't heal by hating who you were. You heal by understanding why you became that way. Control had been his armor. Anxiety had been his alarm system. Neither were evil. They were outdated. Chapter 24. When his mother spoke again. His mother was stronger now. Still healing, still fragile, but present. One evening, sitting at the kitchen table, she looked at him and said something that stuck. "You don't rush anymore." Jake laughed softly. "I used to live 10 minutes ahead of myself." She nodded. "I can tell." "You're here now, that's rare." He realized then that presence wasn't loud. It didn't announce itself. It showed up quietly in how you listen, how you sit, how you wait. This was the kind of strength nobody applauds, but everyone feels. Chapter 25. The day he became the calm one. A younger co-worker came to him one afternoon, voice shaking, eyes wide, clearly on the edge. Jake recognized the look immediately. He didn't give advice. He didn't preach. He just said, "Sit for a second. Breathe. You're not in danger right now." They sat in silence. 10 seconds, then another 10. The panic eased. Later, the coworker said, "I don't know why, but being around you helps." Jake understood then. This was the ripple effect of inner work. When you stop fighting yourself, you become a safe place for others. Chapter 26. Power without noise. Jake was offered a leadership role, not because he demanded it, not because he chased it, but because people trusted him under pressure. He didn't micromanage. He didn't dominate rooms. He created stability. In high-stress moments, while others reacted emotionally, Jake stayed centered. Not cold, not detached, present. That presence became his signature. The thing people remembered about him wasn't brilliance or speed. It was steadiness. Chapter 27. The fear that still knocked. Fear never disappeared completely. It still knocked before big decisions. It still whispered late at night sometimes. The difference now was simple but profound. Jake didn't slam the door on fear, and he didn't let it move in. He listened. He acknowledged it. Then he chose his actions anyway. Fear had become information, not a command, and that changed everything. Chapter 28. The Final Lesson. Daniel gave. During their last session together, Daniel didn't teach anything new. He just reminded Jake of what he already lived. Still mind doesn't mean still life, Daniel said. Life will shake you. Your job isn't to stop the shaking. It's to remain the center. Jake nodded. He finally understood. The unmovable mind wasn't rigid. It was rooted, flexible on the surface, solid underneath. Chapter 29. The Man He Became. Years passed. Jake didn't become famous. He didn't become invincible. He became reliable. To himself, to others. He felt deeply. He suffered when it was time to suffer. He acted when action was needed. And when life was uncertain, he didn't run. That was the victory. Not the absence of anxiety, but the absence of fear of anxiety. Chapter 30. The Quiet Truth. One evening, walking through the city as the sun dipped behind buildings, Jake felt that same rare stillness again. Not excitement, not relief, just grounded presence. He realized something simple and final. Peace wasn't a destination. It was a way of walking. He hadn't defeated his mind. He had stopped making it the enemy. And in that surrender, he found something stronger than control. He found freedom. Thank you for watching this video. Please like, share, and comment.